We're going to have a go at this today, but in a slightly different way, and I'm going to see if doing this in a more methodical way will get me a more accurate picture of her, because I just did this freestyle, i.e. just looking at the picture. This is the photograph that she took of herself. It's got a bit of a wet blob on it. It's quite a moody face of hers, to be honest, but I really liked it. And it was originally in colour, and I just copied it as best I could. And I just sat on the sofa having a play with a normal set of lead pencils. Look at that, that's not very good for the OCD. As I say, this was done very freehand, very sketchy, as a kind of attempt at a portrait. Wanted to see if I could capture the essence of Georgia, and she's in there. I can definitely see her. But I wondered if doing it more methodically, I might get a better option. There's lots of different types of pencils that you can get. Now I've got this set which runs right through from all the H's to all the B's. I've also got a set of pencils. No, that's charcoal. I've also got this set which are lead all the way through, which are quite good for shading, and they are all the B's. So they're quite good. I've also bought in the past just a very quick shading. So these are just the B's, and really in art world, other than, unless you're doing architecture stuff, you really want the B's, not the H's. And then of course I've got my little box of Stabilos that you've seen me use quite regularly. On top of that, and this is what we're going to be using today because these are fun, all those different types of pencils, and they all have kind of different uses and you can overlap them. But I've also got this set, and they are Faber-Castell, and they are water soluble graphites. So they still come in the 6Bs and the Bs, but we're going to be able to add water to them afterwards. So that I'm going to have a go with those. And I might also add my graphite Stabilo into it as well, which is also water soluble. So that's what we're going to have a go at today. But going back to this picture that you can see here, one of the really useful tools that I've used are these paper stubby roll-up things. You can make your own with a bit of paper, just roll it up and sellotape it into place. But they are great because when you use the soft pencils, they are very smudgeable. And these paper roll-ups help you blend and smudge the pencil work that you've done, and that's how I have created a lot of this feeling, and it stops it getting it all on the side of your hand. So I did that one. I had a little play yesterday. I was just sitting around. This is a lot more smudgy, so I've used this quite a lot in smudging. This was a picture that I got of Pixabay. So if you go to websites, like if you want to have a go at this sort of thing, you can go to websites like Pixabay, Pexels. I think they're all free sites with pictures that are in the public domain, and you can type in portraits, and you can even type in black and white portraits. And this was a lady that came up on there, and I had a go at that. But because I knew no one would recognise her unless I printed the picture off, I thought yesterday I would do actually one of Georgia, because most of you know what Georgia looks like. So it's always a test once you've practiced enough to actually have a go at a real portrait to see if you can capture it. And I did the one of Georgia, and Georgia came in and I said, look what I'm doing. She immediately recognised herself, so that was a good thing. So now I've done it a little bit more methodically, and it's actually, I've realised some of the things that I did wrong, because we're going to do the same picture again. So what I've done is I turned the photograph into black and white, on Photoshop, but there's lots of much easier programs that you can do that. And I've printed it off, and it's quite small. I guess the original was. I don't want to blow it up and lose the detail of the eyes and so on, get it pixelated. Then what I've done is roughly a square. So I've drawn with a pencil line halfway down each axis, if you like, and then I've enlarged it so I know exactly that it's a square. So the two lines are the same, and drawn a square on my page. Now that's going to help me transfer what I've got here, and it's already made me realise by looking at it how why I was finding it tricky, because the picture is almost straight on. And at first glance, you'd think it was straight on, but it's not, because her nose here, you can see much more of this side of her nose than you can that side, and this sort of depth in her eye. And the line actually goes right down there. So you can see that 3/4 of her nose is actually on this side of the line. So it's not down the centre as we might have imagined. So that's one of the things that's really hard to translate if you're just doing it freely, is because it would be tempting to draw the line down the middle there, and then you'd get it wrong. So by doing just a simple line, now obviously when we were at school we used to do grids, like centimetre grids, so that we could translate it, and you can do that if you want, but I don't think it's entirely necessary. But just that one cross in the middle really shows you immediately that the perspective of this picture isn't straight. Okay, so then it also helps you be able to put your pieces, I'm going to call them pieces, your features in the right place. So and unbelievably, even with the cross and the stuff inside, my natural instinct, it was to do, I've rubbed this out twice, was to do the nose much longer, because my eyes tell me the nose is longer than that, which then left the mouth hanging off the bottom of the chin. And I had to force myself to rub it out and put it back in the correct place. So for example, this line here, which I know is half of my picture from here to here, I think it's here, yeah, that line there. The nose, the bottom of the nose, is halfway between the two. So it had to finish. So I literally, because I couldn't believe it, got the ruler out and I actually measured halfway down, because I wasn't happy with it. I wanted it to be lower, but then I didn't have room for the mouth. So I've gone around this whole piece doing check, check, check of not only the position, but also things like the corner of the eye there. I'm hoping you can see this, yeah, is lined up with there. So it's not right to the edge, it's there. So yes, that's correct. The start of the eyeball lined up to the edge of the mouth. So this is what helps you get the pictures into proportion. Check it, check it, check it. So that corner of that mouth is lined up with the corner of her eye. Yes. The distance between that and that is the same as, I don't know, you can use your ruler. So the distance between that and that, that's, I don't know, 1 3/4, and then measure something else to find something else that's 1 3/4. The distance between the eyes is 2. So the distance between the eyes should definitely be more, 2.5, than the distance between there, and so on. So use that as your guide. Keep measuring using other features that you've already put in. And this eye seemed massive to me, but it's literally, the shading is starting in the corner here and finishing, that's halfway. So there we are, halfway. So that's a really giant eye, and this eye in comparison is actually quite a lot smaller. So, and I had to I couldn't quite work out where to start that line because it's not sort of obviously halfway. So I started with this eye because that was in quite an obvious place, and a straight line is actually right across the bottom of her eye, on both of those eyes. So the bottom of her eye, even though you want to do it round, is actually almost a straight line. And again, that's another sort of just helpful thing that you might not have thought, because your eye wants to correct. Everyone always says, draw what you see, not what you think you see, because our mind tells us what's right, and it's not always what's right. We're correcting things that aren't there. So I started with that eye, which then helped me do the nose and get the measurement here. And then obviously the mouth, which I'd moved twice, but then I could go back up and get the starting point for that eye. So sometimes it's not as easy as just doing two eyes together. If that eye's not in a really obvious place, I went round the picture to pick it up and put the proportions into place. So find the easiest way of your picture. And if it doesn't work one way, then go around and look at the next feature and use that as your measuring. So I'm now, once you've done this, and I suggest you do your lines, I've done them quite dark so that you can see them, but I suggest that you do them sort of with a soft 2B pencil so that they're easy to rub out. Now this is my mixed media pad of paper, so it's going to be fine. It's what I've got. You could use watercolor paper. You've got to use some kind of paper that's going to be okay to take water without it all expanding and getting bubbly. Is basically the call of the day. But even if you've got just cartridge paper, and I'm just going to go in roughly now and quickly just fill back in the bits that I've rubbed out. But even if you've got cartridge paper, if you wet it, if you dip it in the bath, and while it's still soaking wet, so it will have expanded, tape it with masking tape to a piece of wood. It will then dry, but the expandingness will help it. You'll be able to use it as watercolor if that's all you've got. So that was one of my college art day cheats when because paper's not cheap, but the quality of the paper actually totally defines the quality of the finished piece. In a way, it's the thing that you need to spend the money on. If you try to do this on normal printer paper, for example, if you were doing the pencils like I've done yesterday, just the normal pencils, and you're not adding water to it, printer paper's fine. But if you're spending hours and hours on a piece of work and you're really trying at it, do you really want it to be on printer paper? So I've just about filled her in, and this nose thing, I can't get over how enormous this side of her nose is, but I've checked and checked and checked it, and it is. So okay, now by putting it into black and white, I'm able to see where the shading is easier. Now if you can't do that on your computer and you've only got a colour one, fine, go with what you've got. But I found it was very easy to just turn it into black and white, and I could then see the grades of shade. So I'm going to go in with a 4B, doesn't really matter, but 4B is quite a soft, sort of halfway up the soft scale. And remembering these are water soluble, so I'm not trying to get perfect lines. I'm trying to fill in some of this dark shade. So when you're doing this kind of drawing, it is about that grade, that shade of the grayscale. That is probably one of the darkest points in the picture. So I need to go round my picture and find out, look for areas that are as dark as that. So there's areas here, there's areas here, here, but it's not everywhere. So again, we're using our reference and our drawing as a constant reference to where we need to put the shading in. So don't just go, right, she's got a dark eyelid all the way over, because it's not. There's a light area there in the middle, and this is really an exercise in looking and looking again and looking again, and especially if you're trying to do an accurate portrait, you'll get to the end and think, it still doesn't look like her. Why doesn't it look like her? And you have to look and look and look, and there'll be just tiny little tweaks to the shape. And then you'll suddenly find the character comes through, even if it's not a complete sort of amazing copy. That's why caricatures are able to sort of alter, really drastically alter lots of features in your face, as long as they get the main outside shape and sort of main shapes of the eyes, etc. Even if they're exaggerated, it will still look like the person that they've tried to do. So, you know, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but that's how they achieve that, is that they've got the main outside of the shape. So I'll take a little opportunity to say hi. Hi, Denise. Hi, Shaz again. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Ziggy. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you guys turning up. I hope you're going to have a go. I thought I'd do some back to basics. Although it isn't basics really, because faces are never basics, but if it's something that you strive to like and do, we're very familiar with looking at faces because we look at each other all the time. And in a way, that's sometimes what makes it hard, because our brain tries to take over and say, no, we know there should be shadow there, or the nose should be longer, or, you know, we take in a face in one whole sweep, and then we look at that person so many times that we stop really taking in little things, details that are different about them, perhaps a mole or a scar or something. We stop seeing it because we just recognize them as a whole. But it's also why, like, when someone is walking in the distance, like a long way away, that you can tell that that person is your mum, your dad, whoever, because there is familiarity in the uniqueness of their stance, of the way they move, the way they hold themselves, and your brain's retained that. So I'm going around very sort of sketchily, just back and forth, using the side of the pencil to fill in where I can see the shading. Hi, Donna. Yes, Donna, your picture was amazing. Now, if any of you watching are not in the Fairy Chic Club, then consider it. It is a really lovely place to be at the moment. We are such a supportive group of people. We've really kind of come up with our own body system. We're supporting each other through the sort of rage of emotions that we're going through at the moment with all this staying at home business. And we are sort of helping each other through with business ideas and creative ideas. There is a free course, 3-part free course in there for anyone that is interested in doing faces and this kind of artwork. And you'll get access to that for free. And you'll also get put into another Facebook group that's private to be able to share your work. Now, Donna's one of the earliest people to have actually got on and had a go at one of my from start to finish instructions, and the piece that she's done is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm so chuffed. She should be so chuffed. So I'm waiting. There's going to be more coming, because I know there is, but if you're interested, Fairy Chic Club is at its cheapest levels only £6 a month, which is very little, to have a community, access to free lives. You also get access to discount paints and products. And if you want to go up to the higher levels, the more business levels, and get big discounts on my paints, then the higher level is £25 a month. But then there is I'm not chasing anyone for orders. There's no startup costs to starting up a business. You can buy 2 bottles of paint if you want. But if you're buying regularly for your own use or for a concession or whatever, it is 40% discount off all paints, so it's a really good discount with no obligation to sort of keep buying it or buy a minimum every month or none of that. I don't chase anyone for any of that. You just make your commitment of your payment to the club, and you get all the tutorials and everything that's going on in there as well. And you then get obviously access to the cheap paint for as long as you're in the club. I know that there isn't a single person in the club at the moment that won't sing really highly of what it's doing for all of us. We've been doing something that's really lovely. We've been taking our other members on a walk around our local areas so that we can see where we live, and giving each other a little history lesson on our areas, and it's been really, really lovely. So I'm chatting away, and as you can see, I'm just scribbling really, but the face is starting to take some shape. Now, I haven't really gone into any detail about the outside edge shape. I tend to start with the features and work out. I love those kind of drawings where you only see, even sometimes not even all the features, just the eyes, or the eyes, an eye and a nose, and like the outside edges of the face are just missing altogether, and it's like you're dragging the artwork out of the page, or the person is emerging through from the page. Does that make sense? I love those pictures. They are really cool. We might have a go at some of those in the future. But this is your test, guys, of how far you've come in your practice, is to have a go at a portrait. It doesn't have to be someone in your family or anything like that. I started obviously doing pop stars and things from magazines as a child. Georgia has already had a go with her favourite pop star. Some of you will have seen it, Jodie, I think her name is, and it was really good. She's gone straight for colour, and super impressed with it. But I think pencils is good to start with, and these are kind of almost the next stage up from just normal pencils, because you then activate them with water and you get to use them like paint. As such, you get to move it around, and then obviously after that you could go to watercolor pencils. I've done a lot with watercolor colored pencils in the past, and they're really good because you can get the drawing in, really as good as you can, and then activate it all afterwards with water really carefully, and then it just looks like a painting. It's magic to watch. So I'm literally going around and with the same pencil at this stage for all of it, and you'll see that in some areas, like around this eye, around this pupil, it's slightly darker, and that's just simply putting slightly more pressure on the pencil. And I know that it will sort of activate. And we don't have to have done the whole picture before we activate either. We can go in, we'll do a bit in a minute just to get started, and then we'll see what else is needed. Then you can add more shading and activate it in stages as well, just to make sure it's heading in the right direction. Donna has also ordered a set of my art paints, and it's travelled all the way to America in this difficult times. Amazed it got there, really. But it has. I've got a discount on my paints at the moment, if any of you haven't seen it. There's obviously big discounts if you're in the club, but if you're not in the club and you want some paint, I've got a code, COVOID 19, which you put in at the checkout, and it will give you 19% off all of your paints and extras. So that's on my website. So hop on over there and get a bargain. So it's hard to imagine at this point how much the water is going to make a difference. So let's show you. So I'm going to start with just a small, this actual brush came with the set of watercolour pencils, and I'm going to have a tissue on standby just to mop up anything that I need to. So I'll start, it gives you this just gorgeous grayscale. I love it. Now, if you've joined later and you don't have these watercolours, go back to the beginning of the live and I'll talk to you about the smudging tool that I use with normal pencils that you can hand make yourself to sort of create a different but equally quite lovely effect, which is how I did my picture yesterday. So I just thought I'd try it again today and sort of just do it more methodically than I did yesterday with the cross starting lines, just to see. And I saw immediately what I'd struggled with yesterday. As soon as I started using the going back to, you can get to, oh, I can do it, I've done so many, and then just putting a simple grid in. It's like, that's what the problem was. Okay, don't get too clever. So tonight's the night to stand outside and be grateful and cheer for our NHS, for our care workers, for dustbin men, for all the people that are working in the shops and just everyone that is chipping in and doing their bit. It's actually, I live on a main road, and it's actually lovely here every Thursday, real community spirit. Somebody up the road always blasts out You'll Never Walk Alone, and we all sing and wave our arms in the air, and everyone comes out just for that 5 minutes, and we all sort of nod at each other and go, "You doing all right? You doing?" And I just come in touched every week. So definitely be out there tonight. Some of you have seen on my page, I've been talking a little bit about ladies. Some of you donated towards a lady locally that Mark dropped in on. Basically, it was a customer of his that, as a handyman, he used to do some work for her parents quite a long time ago now, a couple of years maybe. And he'd heard that the dad had become unwell, and he popped in to see how the daughter was doing. And just by chance, really, he was passing and he thought, I'll just see how they all are, because he'd really liked the father and done a fair bit of work for him. And he was a nice, really nice man. I met him myself several times. And she was in a terrible state. And she threw herself at Mark with clothes that hadn't been washed for ages. I don't think she'd been washed for ages. And crying, really distressed, and saying that she wanted to put her head in the oven. It's horrible, really horrible. He'd never seen her like that. She'd lost tons and tons of weight, and just looked terrible. He went into her house. She had no food. She said she didn't have any money. She'd applied to the Universal Credit back in December, and we're talking March, still hadn't come through. So she had no money to buy food. Her bills were being paid because the house belonged to her father, who was now in care and unable to. He's sadly suffering from dementia, so sort of not able to sort her out. She's got no family. She's looked after her parents for 20 years. and she had no food. And she was really unwell and really sad. And we got her admitted to hospital. And she was assessed rather unbelievably at 4:30 in the morning for her mental health, and then they discharged her home. And they discharged her home, paying for her to have a taxi because she didn't have any money, back to a house with no food and exactly the same situation. Unbelievable. So she rang us, and we're not friends. We're just, we'd helped out, and she rang us, a bit desperate, really. So we put an appeal out on our page, and we have been going around buying her food ever since. And I rang social services for her and so on, and they were assuring me it was all in play. But just as an update, she's much, much better. As soon as she was fed, she was better. She's been so grateful to just have somebody not feel so completely abandoned in the world, and have somebody ringing her every other day. We ring every other day and have a chat with her on the phone, and she really wants to chat. And she rang us yesterday to say that her money has finally come through. And I think she was worried that we would now abandon her, seeing as she didn't, she's got her own money. And we were like, no, of course not. We're not going to just forget about you. So we will still come and do your shopping for you, because she hasn't got any transport, and stay in touch and see how you're doing. So just little things make a big difference. And, really, she's not our responsibility, or, but there wasn't anyone else. There literally wasn't anyone else. And at the moment, I think there are lots of people falling through the system because of what's going on with coronavirus. And so I do think it is our responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility to check our neighbours are okay, even if, they're not really anything to do with us or our family. But that situation for my lady was very genuine and real. And she would be dead. I really think she would be dead if we hadn't taken food round. And that's just terrible. So, guys, check on your neighbours. Do your bit. If you can't get out, if you can't go to work and you can't do those things, and you're well enough to be able to check on your neighbours, etc. Not you, Shaz. Is it starting to look like her? You're starting to see it. I think it kind of looks more like her than the one I did yesterday, but we will compare when we get to the end. So I've got my 4B. Actually, I'm going to up it now. So I'm going to go in with a 6B. So it's softer, but because it's softer, it means it's darker. I think, Louise, everyone is feeling really emotional. We're all getting sort of sad stories about people that we know either really well, or just stories generally on the news. When I saw the mass graves in New York, it just doesn't bear thinking about. And I find, for me, I'm allowing slotted times a day to have a quick check on the COVID situation, and then I have to move away. That's my way of coping with it, because I can be careful. We can all be careful. That's all we can do, is look after each other as much as possible, take as many precautions as we can, and then, to a certain extent, try to concentrate, because we can't control after that. We can't take control of. So can you see where that has come out particularly dark? And that's because it's still a little bit wet, but I really like that. These little happy bleeding accidents. But we can add more water to this on top. You know, we're doing it in stages. I thought this felt semi-brave doing an actual portrait in front of you guys, because usually I do a picture and say very early on, right, this isn't meant to look like her at the end. That's my get out. It isn't meant to. The fact that I was trying really hard, but it didn't. So, but this is meant to look like her, so, oh, no pressure. Oh. We are hoping to have Heike and Jackie Hoffman do some lives in the club very soon. They've had to postpone. They were due in the last few weeks, and that due to everything that's going on, internet connections are proving problematic for lots of people, even me at times. I think everyone's online. So they are still going to be our next visitors, next live guests, and I just love both of their work so much. I'd spend a lot of time cruising their pages, in awe, really. I've never produced anything like that. I don't think I've got the patience. But yeah, check their pages out. Jackie Hoffman's Creations and Heike's DIY Shabby Chic, I think it is. They're both. And they've never done a live before, either of them, and they've agreed to do it in a club. So that's super exciting. So I'm still going around my eye, filling in the dark. Now, it's one of the things that captured me yesterday was the eye. Actually, the hair there is whiter than the white in her eye. There is a sort of greyness to the eye. And that's about, again, just sort of observing those gradients. Are we keeping them all the dark bits as dark as each other? Hello, that's my cat, Candy. He's very vocal. And although I'm not going to do much in the hair, I do want to. There is a clear sort of dark areas around the hair, and there is a clear dark area on her chin. And I thought yesterday she's got quite a dimply bit there. So, and that's her youth. And it's checking out those little areas that will then reveal her age. This printer actually cut off her neck, but I know that the neck was there and it was quite dark. So just doing that. So let's go back in with our water now. So you can see, like, I've literally gone back in and can just start drawing over the top. I hope that this process is kind of useful to you, just to sort of see it all the way through in black and white. I think it's quite a good way to start. There's no mixed media going on here to sort of befuddle the eye. I shall turn it over in a minute and then you'll see the difference between this one and the one I did freehand yesterday. Then it'll be all embarrassing. I do like these pencils though, that I think I bought them on Amazon, just water soluble, Faber-Castell, and I think they were about £10. I've got a strand of hair. I will do a bit more on that hair strand, I think, actually. So still on my 8, and I'm aware that the page is wet, so I'm going to be careful where I put it. Her hair's a definite bob, so just wanted to give the feeling of movement in her hair. Just let's try with this. Strands that are going through her hair. If you struggle to find pictures of, say, Pixabay and Pexels, there's a few that have royalty free. It's about getting the sort of front. I would suggest, if it's your first one, getting a front on, or at least if you're doing one like mine, which kind of looks front on, but then turned out it wasn't once I'd done the crossbay. That was quite an interesting, for me, quite an interesting process. Like I struggled yesterday freehand trying to getting her looking over that way, because I was, really clear she's looking that way in the picture, but like, why can't I get it to? And that's why. It's because it's not central, it is slightly over. So just by using the cross section that I did at the beginning, made that all totally easy instead. I struggled for ages yesterday over nothing. Now, I don't think you can actually rub out this pencil, but you can't rub out the watercolour. I'm pretty sure you can't. Let's try. No, but you can as pencil, okay? But once you've activated it, you're stuck with it. So move it around quickly, put less water on. Right, don't sort of go in with this huge brush, and then have a tissue to urgently blot anything out if you put too much on. And I would probably suggest starting on the less dangerous areas, around the neck where you've got a big chunk, rather than detailed eyes, just to give yourself some confidence on how the water changing situation happens. But for those of you that are students, this is how I got through my whole nursing student age, doing portraits for people of their children and so forth, and earning myself some going down the pub money. So I got quite used to having to look and look and look and look and sort of just try and capture that essence. I don't even know what you call it, but I know you know what I mean. And I'm not sure I've caught it yet here. It's a nice picture, but I'm not sure I've caught her yet, but we will see. And because the other thing that is more difficult that I'm doing today because of you guys is lying it down flat, and I would recommend, yesterday when I was doing it, it was on my lap, sort of an upright, because as soon as you tip it up to yourself, it looks completely different. Don't like that there. Okay. Yeah, I am moving around the whole face, and because I do a bit and then I'm judging, right, have I done that bit over there the same? Is it the same depth? I'll go round and round and round in circles. So, and maybe it's, I don't know if other people do it, to be honest. Maybe it's like, like when you have a plate of food, I'm always fascinated when I go to restaurants how people eat their food. Like some people eat, and one of my children eats like all the peas, all the veg first, in their mind, to get the horrible stuff out of the way first, and then move on to the potatoes, whatever, and then leave the best bit to last. And the last mouthful is, really importantly, the best bit. Then other people eat their meals like eating a little. I eat my meals with, I might put a tiny bit of potato, tiny bit of veg, tiny bit of the main roast, all on the same fork at the same time, and then I put it so it's like a perfect, for me, perfect mouthful of all the good stuff. And then indeed the last mouthful has to be the best bits all on one fork, and then I can't eat anything afterwards because it would spoil the taste, the lovely taste that I've saved. And maybe art is the same, that some people just, I have seen some like speeded up where people just do the eye, all of the eye, and then move to all of this and then all that, and I don't. I'm doing exactly what I do when I eat, which is mosey round, having a bit of everything. There you go. So check out how you eat your meal and see if it is in line with how you do your art. I'll be interested. It's making me giggle. She looks younger today. Yeah, I can have a go at your portrait, Shams. I'd quite like to have a go if anybody would like a portrait done, you know, in these times. And you know, I might not finish this today. I might have to look at it upright and fiddle. But if nothing else, it looks like a reasonably accomplished face. There's my dark there. So you can get really quite an inky black. And I think we were on 6B, so I've still got an 8B to use. And then my Stabilo is even blacker, it's proper black. I may or may not use it. This at the moment kind of feels enough. But all I've used, obviously pencil and a rubber, is ruler and a rubber, is 2 pencils so far, and the water. I don't know what I've got an 8B. So let's see how much darker the 8B is. No, I'm always judgmental. That's the trouble, is I very rarely, I have got a few pieces of my artwork up on the wall at home, but I tend to put them in places where I don't look at them, either behind me, because if there's something wrong with it, that's the only thing that you see. And yeah. But I guess that's part of practice, and maybe just need more practice and then I'll be happy. I think it's also, it can be quite hard to know when to stop. So, you know, can you see how black that is in that area? But I quite like, and I did put in yesterday, some of these kind of squiggly loose lines, holding the pencil right at the top. I've done that in my artwork forever. If you look at some of my like early pastel pictures that I did, if you followed me a while, you'll have seen me doing them. And I just at the end just use the to give more of the suggestion, I suppose. Right, let's get this eye sorted out. It's too light compared to the rest of the picture. So we're going in with some 8B. And you're going to get your mood on, daughter. In the actual original picture, she's on Instagram, and she's posted it there. She's holding up an egg. She did this pose for her Easter pose for Instagram. This is her happy Easter pose. Like you do. Now, obviously we can't take away anything that we've put on, but if we desperately needed to put some white back in, you know, I'll just go ahead and use a Posca pen. So ideally not, but I'm not going to start the picture all over again for the sake of a bit of Posca pen. And this really is my going round and round and round and trying to correct, add to little bits. Oh, bless you, Shaz. You can do this. And Shaz is in the club, and I have quite detailed courses in there, and there's more to come. It does kind of look like her. Let me show you, because we're nearly out of time. I'll show you what I did before, and we'll see. Well, now that's without a cross grid, using the smudgy pencils. They're not actually pencils, that's just a paper. It's like a rolled paper, and you smudge it out. And I like today's better. Practice makes perfect, I guess. But I do like today's better. Just going to get some of those scribbles out. I don't know if it's just the medium that makes it look better, or the fact that she's more in proportion. So I kind of just urge you to try, but do the work, do the grid, even just in the 4, to get your features in place, and really look and check up from feature to feature. Are they right? Are the lines, are the measurements right? And if you missed the beginning, I showed you how to do that. Go back to the beginning of this live. So I'm just like activating those little extra bits that I just put in a minute ago. Of her eye, I've got my Stabilo just to show you, because this is really black. Now, I don't really think this is entirely necessary, but I've got this out, and look how lovely and black that is. It's obviously automatically being activated like straight away because it's already wet. You could do the picture in entirety with the Stabilo. I do like the dark, the rich black, I have to say. Ooh, it's difficult to know when to stop. But I think my time is just about up for today. But if you're interested in some more portrait style lives, let me know, and I shall do some more for you next Thursday, as I try to stick to coming on every Thursday at this time. I'm just going to put my name. I think I'm about there. I'm kind of happy with that. I'm not sure it's perfectly her, but it's pretty good her. I like it better than the one I did yesterday. I could work on it a bit longer, but I'm happy with it. So hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, definitely on screen, because I haven't seen it like upright. It definitely looks like Georgia to me. I can see Georgia in that. So she'll be pleased with that. Thank you so much for joining me on my journey today. I had some fun doing that. It's always really relaxing. I hope you'll have a go. There is a Fairy Chic art journaling mixed media. I'm not sure if the words are in that order, but look it up. If you're not a member, please join. And if you have a go at this, please post your pictures and your artwork, whatever artwork goes. It's a lovely little group, and I'd love to see you in there. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.